All right, is everybody in? Do we know?
Think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just check.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us for today's virtual town hall. My name is Kalisa Astle. I'll be your behind the scenes person to assist you today with any technical issues that you may need during today's virtual town hall meeting. I want to take a moment just to navigate you through the toolbar down at the bottom of your screen. And for those of you that are on your phones, you're simply going to tap your screen and the toolbar will appear at the bottom of your screen or at the bottom of your phone. So first, at the bottom left of your screen, I'd like you to locate your microphone. If you're not muted already, please place yourselves on mute. You'll know you're muted by that diagonal line that's drawn through the microphone. This is just going to help prevent that audio feedback while everyone is speaking. Second, I'd like you to locate your chat icon at the bottom middle of your screen. When you click on the thought bubble, you'll notice the Zoom chat column appears to the right of your screen. For those of you calling in on your phones, you're going to, again, just simply tap your screen. Once the toolbar appears at the bottom, you're going to tap on the 3 more buttons. A new window will open for you and you'll be able to tap on the chat icon. So if everybody could just take a moment right now and type into your chat box your name and the center that you're from. This is also, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them here today. We're going to use the chat feature since most of you will be muted during today's town hall. As you can see, when you open your chat box, the message that will default, or it defaults to everyone. So when you type there, if you have a technical issue, go ahead and hover over where it says everyone. You're going to click on the down arrow button and you'll see that you can click on my name and then just select my name. That will change it from everyone, the message going out to everyone. It'll be private between you and I, and then I can walk you through any technical issues that you may be having. So before I hand this over to Jennifer, does anyone have any questions? I'm looking. I don't see any questions, so I think you're good, Jennifer.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Kalisa. You've said that a few times before, haven't you?
Just a few. You know what I should have said instead of the TA person? I heard today on our earlier call, they referred to themselves as the tech pilot. So I think I'm going to change from technical. I think I'm going to be your tech pilot today.
Okay, we will chip in for a hat for you so that you have a pilot hat.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. Afternoon, excuse me. I'm still on morning time. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We have a number of updates for you and some reminders. It seems like it's been such a long time since we've all gotten together, but I know you've all been completely busy. Hopefully made it successfully through the holidays and through this uptick of our COVID cases. We know that you're doing everything that you can to keep children and your staff safe and healthy, health and safety over this time period. So we're really appreciative of you taking the time to join us today. Just the agenda items, we'll go over some reminders. It is legislative session, so we wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today. We have some school readiness updates, some Vpk updates, and then a couple of reminders from our partner agencies, Dcf and the health department as well, that we wanted to share with you today. So we'll jump right into things. If you have any questions, feel free to type them and Kalisa will jump in and stop me if we need to address any issues. If I don't have the answer for you today, I promise I will do my best to find an answer for you and get back to you if I'm not able to answer it immediately. So welcome, happy 2022. If you had told me we were still working remotely in January of 2022, I would be absolutely shocked. But I will say that we are still working remotely at the Coalition, but we are doing our site visits. So we're monitoring, we're doing class assessments and inclusion visits, and those kinds of things are still taking place. So our goal is to not have folks in the office while we are still at risk in the community, but we are still available to support you any and every way possible, and your families as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out while we wait for this to get back to a reasonable lull and we can move back to our office. For our reminders, many of you, I just got a notice that we have about 150 some odd responses to our early education workforce survey. So first I want to say thank you to those of you who have done this. It just takes you, there it is, 159 as of today. This is a survey that we're doing to just get your feedback, because we are going to apply for some funds through the state of Florida. They've allocated some funds for workforce retention, recruitment, and upskilling. And so part of what we wanted from you is to make sure that what we apply and what programs we look to implement in Seminole County are actually going to be valuable to you. So those of you who have responded, we're taking all of your responses into consideration, and we'll have some announcements later on as far as how those dollars will be used to support your workforce. And these are specifically across the board for school readiness and VPK. These are for contracted providers. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and that'll keep coming. So if you haven't responded, we're leaving that survey open through the end of the day today. And then we're going to close it down so that we can move forward with creating our application to the state. But what that means is, based on your responses, there will be some additional supports coming forward. We know you all are really struggling with workforce and the competition with other industries, and making sure that you have the high quality educators that you need to do great things with children. That being said, we'll jump to our next reminder. I think many of you have already applied for this, but I want to make it very clear. The disaster relief for early education instructors, that is the $1,000 that went to ECE instructors. Directors had to apply. They had to validate their staff members, their instructors. It had to be folks who were in the classroom and actually teaching, and directors. And this is a second round. So those of you who did this before, please understand this is a second round. Public schools only got $1,000. Early childhood educators are getting a second $1,000 support to keep our folks in the industry. So there was an email that went out on January 13th. We have a couple of our staff members that are supporting that. Pam Watson and Carla Butler are assisting with just making sure if you have questions or supports. There's also a statewide email that you can contact. Oops. Did I lose you? Can everybody hear me still? Thumbs up? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
My phone did a crazy beep. I thought I lost everyone. So I just want to make sure that everybody is applying for this $1,000. It's money that goes towards your staff, your instructional staff, to support them. And we just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to do this. I don't know how long the state will keep this open. Their first deadline was, I think, the 22nd of January, I think, was their first deadline. They may open it again. We are making phone calls, trying to support folks in applying for these. And this goes for contracted and non-contracted providers. So this one, if you know peers that don't have a contract with the coalition, please help us spread the word. We want folks to be supported in this industry, and these are dollars that can help folks whether they contract with the coalition or not. So we want to make sure that they're accessing these funds, folks that are in our industry. Okay. Questions or concerns about that? Oh, one other piece about that before we move forward, you may get some phone calls from us because the state in the first round, the state had some checks that were cut that have not been cashed. And those checks are only good for 180 days from when they were issued. So if you applied, you were the director who signed off and a staff member has left, you may get a phone call from us if we have a check that's hanging out there, because the bottom line is if the check isn't cashed, then it's going to go back into the state and it won't end up in an educator in Seminole County's hands. And we would prefer that, to make sure that those individuals, even if they've moved on to another center, they're still eligible because they were eligible during that period, and we'd like those individuals to get those funds. So don't be surprised if we call and ask you about either a former employee or a current employee that perhaps has not cashed that check yet. Again, we're just trying to make sure the money gets into the right hands. These are some of those extra duties the state has asked us to support you with, and our team is doing a great job of trying to reach out and help you all through this process. Next piece. Thank you. So phase 6 CARES funding. That funding application went out prior to the Christmas and Thanksgiving. I think it was prior to Christmas holiday. And we have been releasing those funds as applications are approved. I just want to make sure that you're all aware that this is for contracted and non-contracted providers. It's a pretty big chunk of money based on your DCF capacity. And I want to make sure that any of you that have not applied do so quickly, because again, if we don't use these funds, they go back to the state, and we'd like these dollars that are allocated to you all in Seminole County to stay with you, and make sure that you're getting the funding to keep your doors open and keep managing the challenges that you've had during this pandemic, and with the workforce challenges that we've had. So that's what these funds are for. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware and has applied, and hopefully many of you have already received these funds. Oh, I do see a question. Scott, you asked if those funds are part of the American Rescue Plan. They are not. Those funds were from CARES and CRSA. I don't know. Carissa, I've heard it pronounced CRSSA funds. We are under the impression that the legislature, a plan has been submitted to the legislature for the American Rescue Plan. That's another bucket of funds. I do not know when they will be released, but we will definitely let you know as soon as we have a plan for those funds. It's another pretty big bucket of funds. So they are coming. I just don't have all the details yet as far as when they will be available to us in Seminole County. But please keep up with us, your emails, and feel free to call at any time, and we'll let you know as soon as we know that when those funds are available. I see, where can I go to apply? If you want to contact, if it depends on what you're applying for, we have sent out email blasts, and we'll put some phone numbers in the chat box as well here, so that you can call one of our team members. You can feel free to call me or one of our team members to see if you're looking for the disaster relief application or the phase 6 application. There's 2 different application processes for that. So we'll be happy to share that with you, Christina, later on. Thanks for the questions. Anything else? So I've been promising this, I believe, for quite some time, and I apologize that it's taken me so long to move forward. Within the next week, we will be sending out some registrations for focus groups. I've said several times, please participate. And first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming to these town halls, picking up the phone and calling me, participating in our surveys that we send out. All of the information that you share with us helps inform the decisions that we make. It helps us share information on what you're doing and the challenges you're facing with our board members and with our funder, the Division of Early Learning. So I really appreciate all of that. One of the pieces that we are interested in looking at, and it references actually the American Rescue Plan funds that will be coming forward, is to talk about business practices and what types of supports we could offer you. Offering something that's involved and long-term might not be the right thing for each of you. So we wanted to have some focus groups and look at how we could provide support. Again, many of you come from business backgrounds, many of you come from education backgrounds. So how can we support you to have continued high quality care for children and support your business practices as well? And so one of the things that we'll be talking about specifically are things like, would you like support with marketing and some training on that? Creating a budget and planning for expenditures, human resources support. We're going to ask a lot of those questions in the focus group, and it's probably complex enough that just sending out a survey is not the way to go. So I hope that you all will try and offer them at several different times. We'll do them by Zoom right now because of the numbers in Seminole County, the positivity rate, just to keep everybody protected. But we'll do them by Zoom and have small groups. So it'll probably be 10 to 15 people per group to participate and give us some feedback on business practices. So I wanted to mention that so that you could start to think about what types of business practices would be helpful for you. Where do you struggle? Again, because we don't want to create something that's not helpful to you and that's not useful. We don't educate any children at the Early Learning Coalition. Our goal is to support you with high quality experiences and supports so that you can offer high quality care to the children in our community. So our goal is to help you, and we know the pandemic has really made this industry challenging. And so we're trying to find ways that we can provide additional supports that will be useful to you. Another piece that we wanted to talk about is just a reminder about COVID-19 closures. I know many of you went for a big period of time without any COVID-related closures. And we do have on our website kind of our 3 steps to reporting. Make sure that you're reporting the cases to the health department. Make sure that you're completing this closure form, because I am reporting that up to Division of Early Learning, whether you have an individual classroom closure, a full center closure, or just some positive cases where only those individuals have to be out of the school, either isolating or in quarantine, but your center, all your core classes still remain open. That helps us with paying for absences and those kinds of things as well. And then making sure that if it's applicable, any of the closures you enter into the provider portal as well. And most of you are doing a really good job with that. I just know that we were struggling because some folks kind of forgot what we needed to do. So there is a link on our website. Again, you can feel free to call me at any time related to COVID issues. I'm happy to listen to your struggles. I'm not an epidemiologist or an expert, but certainly can provide whatever support I can to help you through those challenges. Kalisa put the link to our webpage and where the COVID closure instructions are. Okay. Thanks, Kalisa. And it looks like Lori dropped in a flyer that we'll talk about in a minute as well in the chat box. Okay. This is an ask. We recently had an ask from Division of Early Learning, and I just wanted to throw it out there for you all. Sometimes when legislators or leadership in our community is asking about the funding that we receive, they ask for anecdotal reports, a letter, a thank you card. We get them occasionally from our families that are in school readiness or VPK, and sometimes we get them from providers as well. But I just wanted to ask you to consider if you have felt any positive impacts or good news as far as the CARES funds, the SRSA funds, American Rescue Plans coming. As these dollars have been released, have they been able to help you? It's nice to be able to share those with our board members and with leadership in the community that asks about that. So I just wanted to throw it out there as an ask that if you have a story to tell or a positive impact of the interventions and the supports that have come through because of the COVID funding, we would appreciate getting that information. You can send it to me, you can mail a letter to the coalition office, you can always reach out to Cheyenne McGregor, she's our communications team member as well that would be happy to assist with all that. But it's nice to have that. I know many of you have picked up the phone and called me, but it's nice to have that information in writing as well when folks are asking about, well, we released all of these funds, was it valuable? It's nice to be able to give specific instances and stories. I know from all of you that it has been valuable, and I appreciate you sharing that with me, but if you wouldn't mind putting it in writing as well, that's helpful also moving forward. So if the spirit moves you, please send us a letter or a good news report, a story of a family that was able to be helped. We would really appreciate that. Okay. And so we are in the middle of legislative session. 2022 is an election year. So our legislators, both the House and the Senate, began meeting a couple of weeks ago. Next week is Children's Week in the Capitol. And so our funder at Division of Early Learning will be holding some in-person meeting with the CEOs of the coalition. And we'll be talking with legislators about, again, the impacts of these funds and any potential legislation that they might have questions on. I wanted to share a couple of things with you about this. The first thing is I want to encourage you to keep an eye on legislation, and if you need help with knowing where to do that, we're happy to share that information with you. You can Google the Florida House or the Florida Senate, and you can look for early learning, and it'll tell you the bills that are out there and pending. Some bills can be filed and never go anywhere. Some bills can be merged. They can be changed significantly by feedback and input from stakeholders in the community. I know some of you are involved with early childhood with FLACY, FACM, other early childhood associations, and please stay engaged with those groups as well. And if any of you ever want to talk with a legislator and just kind of want to know the process and how it works, I am happy to talk with any of you about that. But again, they've been releasing a lot of federal funds to come into your centers. So if you have opinions, if you have, whether you agree with or disagree with, you have the ability, and I encourage you to participate in the legislative process. And just wanted to share that with you. And for those of you that haven't done it before, I'm happy to support you, let you know who our legislators are. We have a small delegation from Seminole, 1 senator and 3 House representatives. But I'm happy to connect you and provide you with any support to have you voice your opinion on things that are going on. From the Association of Early Learning Coalitions, I wanted you to be aware of the advocacy that we're looking at this year. And there are 4 key elements that I wanted to just share with you so that you kind of understand. Occasionally when bills or laws are passed, folks get frustrated with the coalition and feel like we haven't lobbied on your behalf. The first thing I will say is we can't lobby. We are paid for, our services are paid for through taxpayer dollars, and so our contracts with the state say that we can't lobby. I am not a lobbyist. We do not lobby. What we do, though, is try and educate and advocate for the needs of children and families and providers in our community. So this year, our association statewide has agreed to these following advocacy components. And when we say support Florida's workforce, what we're talking about is supporting Florida's working families by aligning school readiness requirements with Florida's growing economy. And what that means is, as our minimum wage increases, fewer and fewer families would be qualified for school readiness with the subsidy program that we have. So we need to make sure that our sliding fee scale changes so that we can continue to provide that support. We don't want families to fall out of school readiness program because the minimum wage increased, but the federal poverty level did not. So that's something we're trying to educate and make sure that we can continue to serve as many families as possible in our county. The other piece is supporting the workforce behind Florida's workforce, which is the early childhood educators. We know through this pandemic, it's been very, very clear that without your services, people could not return to the workplace. And I think that regardless of political affiliation, either side of the aisle, it's been well recognized nationally and here in the state of Florida by our legislators that the services that you offer to the community are invaluable. And so that's another piece that we want to make sure that they continue to recognize your efforts. We're talking about preserving parental choice, and that means ensuring that we're removing barriers to coalition's flexibility to pay providers equitably across communities. In some places in the state, they've lost providers because they can't pay enough. And so that's a piece that we just want to make sure that we continue to support the industry. We're talking about increasing program efficiency. And one of the things that I want you to hear is that we understand the burden on small businesses that it takes to have a school readiness and a VPK contract, 2 separate contracts with 2 separate sets of rules. And so we're recommending that they look at efficiencies by reducing that administrative burden and standards, and by aligning both the school readiness and VPK, the standards, the contractual requirements, so that it's not 2 different sets of rules that you have to follow. Supporting educational enhancement. This is where we go back to the base student allocation for VPK. Make sure that we increase it to a level that would maintain at least the 21-22 funding. And then set funding levels for school readiness sufficient so that each community can sustain existing child enrollment, so that we don't have any children disenrolled from school readiness, and maximize the number of children served. So those are the big picture issues that we're just trying to advocate, having heard the challenges that you face throughout this pandemic and in the industry as a whole. So I just wanted to share that information with you. And again, I'm here to support you if you're interested in communicating with our local legislators. I know many of you do it on your own, and that's great. But for those of you that would be interested, I'm happy to help you with that process. All right. School readiness. So we'll start with reminders on school readiness. The first piece is to make sure, I mentioned it earlier, but there are no waivers for program assessment or monitoring anymore. Even though we're still in the middle of a pandemic and it becomes challenging, we are still held to meeting all of those contractual obligations. So we have to do the program assessment, we have to conduct our monitoring, we have to ask you about your years of records and tests that you're maintaining records. You know, it seems a little frustrating during this time when you're struggling with your day-to-day business, but it is a requirement that we have to do. So we don't want anybody to be surprised as we go through our monitoring processes and the program assessment component. Remember to keep QPS information up to date. That's where your teacher rosters go, your teacher assignments. And we need that up to date because we understand that you're having some turnover of staff. Hopefully things are starting to stabilize, but as you're recruiting or retaining staff, we need to make sure that we have accurate teachers in that system because that drives our program assessment. So we just want to make sure that everybody, as you're having any changes, keep that up to date. And if your window is open, that you're communicating with us as soon as possible. If you've been notified of your assessment window and have something unexpected occur, please let us know. This also means let us know about those COVID closures so we don't show up in that window and that class is closed. We want to make sure that we're efficient. That kind of wastes taxpayer dollars for the people that are going out, and we want to be as efficient as possible with that as well. As a reminder, we have, I know Tanya has been working with everybody to make sure that you have access to the My Teachstone resources. Those are the online resources that you can use to orient new staff to the class assessment and help them understand what we're doing. And it also helps you keep your team focused on best practices in classroom interactions. So the goal is that you could utilize those resources in a staff meeting. You could ask a staff member to watch a little video and then come back and share with their team how they could apply some of those best practices in their classroom. There's a lot of ways that these can be used at your leisure to support your staff in being successful with these assessments. And so we wanted to just remind you that those are out there. Many of you have logins and passwords. Please use them. The state actually can look at, and we can look at if we've given out a password and a login and nobody's using it, we don't really want to keep funding that. We want to give it to somebody who is. But it's a great resource to just help you in place of being face-to-face in training and in that MMCI. And it's a great way to orient new staff that you've brought on board because they may have no idea about what this assessment is about. And so we want people to feel confident in their teaching practices and have those best practices ingrained in their classroom. So everybody gets a really high score and we can pay differentials and filter more money towards your services. The last piece I wanted to mention was about the PDG mental health grant. That's a preschool development grant that the Division of Early Learning received. We had mental health and curriculum trainings that we've conducted. For those of you that have completed those, we have now moved to the second step, and we have a lot of materials to enhance what you learned in those courses. And be on the lookout. In the near future, we will be sending out a plan for how to distribute those materials to you. They are significant enough that we will not be driving around. We'll have to do a drive-through at you have to come to our house to pick up materials, just because we've had multiple deliveries of a lot of materials. And again, the goal of giving you these materials is to those teachers who have participated in the trainings, they can use these materials to enhance what they've learned in the classroom in their implementation of the strategies they've learned. I'd also like to remind those of you that have those mental health subscriptions for the training to use them, and use them as soon as possible. If you have not completed that training, we cannot deliver materials to your school. So we need to make sure that the staff that have signed up for that training are utilizing it. They're fantastic trainings. The Flip It training, the Becky Bailey trainings for conscious discipline, it was a big investment that the state allowed us to do, and the federal monies allowed. So we really would like to be able to give out these materials and see the benefit of these trainings in your classroom. And I think for those that have completed it, we've gotten good feedback that it's very, very valuable. So I just want to encourage any of you that have some staff that maybe haven't completed those to please do so that we can move forward in closing out that grant as we move into the next things that we're offering. And Kalisa mentioned, please send your certificates of completion to Kalisa Assel, C-Assel at Seminole Early Learning. She mentioned that in the chat box as well. Thanks, Kalisa. Once we get that certificate of completion, then we can put you on the list of materials distribution, or your teachers. And we thank you very much for everybody who's been, even in these troubling times, has taken time for that professional development component. We really appreciate that you're committed to that. All right, VPK updates. This one's a little complex. So there are several things going on in our VPK world. I am going to do a brief overview of this. For those of you that don't know, Lori Butler, I don't know if I have announced this before, Lori. I apologize. That should have been my first thing. Lori Butler has now joined us in a promotion. She is now the Director of Quality Improvement. So she's handling our VPK components, as well as training and technical assistance. She's still an infant toddler expert as well, as you all know. But she has taken on that role of director. So you can join me in congratulating her, well deserved. And she jumped in at just the right time when VPK is kind of getting a little crazy. So what's happening is, through laws that passed last year, there are new emergent literacy requirements for VPK. So the Division of Early Learning, you'll see on our slides, DEL, Office of Early Learning, is now Division of Early Learning under Department of Ed. And the trainings that meet the literacy, you have to take 3 5-hour early emergent literacy courses. Early emergent, I meant emergent. So you can see there's a 5-hour phonological awareness on this list, and you'll get these. Lori dropped the flyer into the chat box, and we'll probably email it out to you as well. You've probably seen this before, but maybe didn't know exactly what it meant. Dialogic reading, language and vocabulary development for preschoolers. That's a 5-hour. Book embedded vocabulary instruction is another 5-hour course. Scaffolding and think, show, tell, and talk, language vocabulary development for preschoolers, and building a strong foundation for emergent literacy. Those are all 5-hour courses. You need to have 3 of them. A couple of things to remind you about is that if you had a waiver on previous emergent literacy courses, that no longer is in effect. So if you are going to offer VPK for next year, we have to have all of your lead teachers having completed these 3 5-hour courses before we can sign your VPK contract. It's contract time. And I know many of you are recruiting students for VPK for next year, and we are signing eligibility certificates. We're issuing those on the VPK side, but we cannot sign VPK contracts until we see that your teachers have these emergent literacy courses in place. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I see some questions coming in through, so I might be able to answer them with the next slide, and if not, we'll go back to your questions in a second. So they're in-person or virtual, so you can do them either way. They're divided into 3 components, 3 hours of instruction, 1 hour of home learning, and 1 hour of reflection sessions. You must complete all 3 components to receive the certification of completion, and you have to be an active participant. So if you're on virtually, they want to have cameras on. They want to see active participation. Because this is put in the law and rule, we have to follow through and be able to prove that the folks who have completed it have done it accurately. The credit for the following courses that were previously taken are allowable, but if you took them before about 2018, those courses did not meet this requirement. So you can see emergent literacy for VPK instructors that was revised as of July 1st, 2018. If you took that one, so if you took it on July 2nd of 2018 and it was this course, it will meet the requirement. Language and vocabulary in the VPK classroom, if you took it on June 30th of 2019, it doesn't count. If you took the newest version that was released July 1st of 2020, it will count. Preschool language development from March 19th, 2018, and the building blocks of preschool literacy. Those 2 are 20-hour courses, and you'll see on the next slide that 20-hour courses that were comprehensive incorporated all of this, and therefore those would be fulfill the emergent literacy requirement, all 15 hours. So there's that language development online 20 hours, and that's still being offered by Flamingo Early Learning. That's our friends at UF. They're now calling it Flamingo Early Learning. And the building blocks of preschool literacy, that's also a 20-hour course to CEUs. You do have to register in advance, and they are offering a stipend. So for your teachers that have to do this, if they can do this course and receive a stipend, that's one way to hopefully encourage them to participate. Completion of a competency 1 of the Florida reading endorsement shown on a college transcript. Okay, so that's another piece that's allowable here. And if you have, there's a link here, and again, we'll send this out to you, but I want to share this, and we may have some individual questions. We're learning as we go through this. So if you have an individual question, I see a couple of questions. So let's see if I can go through these, and Lori, you can jump in if I'm incorrect. We're learning as we go with this as well, folks, so I appreciate your patience. If they were taken before 2020, they don't count. It was because the rationale is that it was in a new law, and some of the courses incorporated all the pieces in the law previously, and some did not. So some of them do count, as you saw on the list that we just went through. It's just that not all of them would count towards the law as written this last year. Where do we have teachers sign up for the courses? We'll send out the flyer for you. You can see earlylearningflorida.com. That's for the Flamingo Early Learning courses. And then there are several other places that you can sign up. So we have that flyer in the webinar that we'll pass out in the chat box, excuse me, and we'll send it in a follow-up as well. Let's see, Vanessa, you said you thought 3 total if we previously had 2 emergent literacy classes. So if you took 2 of the ones that are allowable, then you only need to take 1 more. But if you had all of your previous emergent literacy courses were before that 2018 requirement, then you would have to take 3 of the courses that are eligible to meet this requirement now. and I see you're having some trouble. We will help any way we can. Lori and I will try and assist you. So feel free to send Lori an email or reach out to me, and we will do our best to try and support you through this, the transition. Oh, and I see Ann said they just released February dates for component 3. So that might be in your inbox as we speak. I try to be timely, but I might have missed that one. I apologize.
And Jennifer, if
and I'm not sure.
Said, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say a few people said they were having trouble enrolling in the course. If it was through Early Learning Florida, they were probably trying too soon to enroll in the course.
Okay.
Because there was a start date of when you could enroll. The alert went out prior to that. So if they tried to log on and enroll prior to that date, they were not able to. But they should be able to now.
And I just uploaded the flyer for that particular, for the Early Learning Florida courses. They only have not very many days to sign up and register for those if they want to take them. So.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Lori. And there will be more options. I'm sure Early Learning Florida and the state will be continuing to offer this, but the sooner that your teachers, your lead teachers take care of this, the less competition there will be with teacher turnover and challenges. We don't want everybody trying to get a class, you know, August 1st when your program's supposed to start August 15th. You won't even have a contract if your lead teacher doesn't have this. So we want to make sure we're trying to be proactive, and as we've gotten the information, try to share it with all of you. I am not sure if the 300-hour reading endorsement given through the public schools counts. We'll have to check into that. And I am not sure. Directors of VPK centers. So there are director requirements as well for this. So I'm not sure if we've got that on here. That might be the next slide. Oh, now we're going into assessment. So I think in the flyer and the information, Lori, do you recall if directors have to do all of the new trainings as well?
Yes, because the new rule states they have to be endorsed. They can't be exempt anymore. And part of getting that endorsement requires all 5 of those courses. So if you're a director, I would highly recommend you start taking the 5 courses. They're not all of them are the Emergent literacy. They're the, I thought there was a slide with all that on, but I don't see it. So.
We can send it in a follow-up. We'll make sure we send a follow-up email so that the director's components are listed as well. Lori, if you can help me, we'll pull that together. Thank you. Good question, Jamie. Thank you. Erica mentioned that the original letter from Department of Education also included a list of DCF 5-hour courses. Correct. DCF is offering them, Early Learning Florida is offering them, and they're on the flyer as well. Yeah, we've got the flyer and then we've got the DCF courses. Thanks, Erica. Yes, the 5-hour courses are being offered by several different groups. So. All right. Okay, and Sandy put in the chat, the VPK endorsed directors needed to complete the following. So she put the list in here of the courses that they need to take. Thanks, Sandy. All right, that's a lot. I appreciate your patience. We will continue to follow up with additional opportunities and more emails about ways to sign up for these courses. Let's go to the next VPK component, because as of 22-23, which believe it or not is right around the corner for us, private and public school providers must participate in a program assessment. For those of you that are school readiness already, you know what program assessment is. The domains and Teachstone class tool are used in the school readiness program. but DEL has been going through the procurement process to select a tool. It's my understanding that I think they're already done with that procurement, or they might be in the process, but it's very, very specific. And so all programs for children ages 3 to 5 years, that's what the assessment has to incorporate. So that's our VPK programs. And in order to get everybody ready for that, particularly if you are not in school readiness, if you're in school readiness, your staff should be well versed in this, and it shouldn't be a surprise to you. But for those of you that are only VPK providers with us right now, this program assessment is kind of new. So there will be a contract minimum threshold. So they'll be establishing that. There will be upcoming rule workshops. So as those happen, they'll be posted on Division of Early Learning's website. You must meet the minimum program composite score to contract for VPK. Now that doesn't mean for next year. We're going to start the first assessment next year. But for future years, you will have to meet that minimum threshold. If the score is below, they'll continue to provide VPK for the remaining school year, but cannot contract the following year until the threshold is met. So there will be performance improvement plans, those kind of things to help you raise that score for the following year so that you can continue to offer the VPK program. You can request one additional program assessment per program year at your cost, and that's how we do it in school readiness as well. We cover the cost initially, and then if you want an additional assessment, we would do that at your cost. The next piece here. Okay. Let me just mention before we jump to this one, there are several resources available. We're sending out, if you haven't seen it yet, I know we've sent some things out about orientation to the class assessment, the My Teachstone, accessing those tools, just like we mentioned it for school readiness. There are some online resources. There's also a leadership orientation for owners and directors. That's really good to let owners and directors understand what this program assessment is about. So these are all resources that you can use to move forward with getting your teachers prepared. Again, we will start that in the 22-23 fiscal year. So all the details of how that will be rolled out are still being designed, but we don't want to get behind the curve and have your school and your team not know what's coming and have the opportunity to understand what those assessment categories and domains are looking at. And it's student-teacher interaction and how the facilitation of student-to-student interaction is occurring. And there are different domains. So we'll keep offering those things to you, but I want you to be on the lookout for them and take advantage of the opportunity, particularly if you're off over the summer. Now would be a good time to take a look at this stuff so that your team isn't cramming in August as you're trying to start a new school year, and your school could be first up on, September 1st for the assessment, and we don't want you to be caught unaware. So the goal is to give you this information as soon as possible and share these resources with you. We will probably have some additional webinars specifically about this coming up. So again, keep an eye on your email blasts. We'll get into more detail about all of this as things develop, but we wanted to let you know about this, and the resources will be coming out as well. I see, will we still have the assessment next year if we were just assessed in 2020 or 2021? That remains to be seen how VPK and school readiness overlap happen, but because VPK is a completely separate program and has a different rule, this is the way we're assessing the performance of VPK providers moving forward. So yes, VPK will get their own assessment, then we may randomly select that 4-year-old classroom in the school readiness assessment as well. So there's a little bit of overlap. Remember, I talked about advocacy and aligning those contracts. This is one of those things where hopefully over time we'll be able to align them. Can we still use STARS student assessment? My understanding is yes, that STARS student assessment will still be available to you. This is in addition to the program assessment is in addition to the child assessment components that you'll be doing to guide instruction. Good questions. Thank you for participating and giving me your questions. We'll try and continue to get you as much information as possible as we move forward. The Division of Early Learning has allocated some funds to early learning coalitions to acquire technology to combat learning loss during the pandemic. And this is specifically targeting VPK classrooms and VPK programs. We don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I wanted to let you know that they wanted to use technology in the classroom. They've allocated some funds to move forward. And those of you that use the STAR assessment online, you probably have been utilizing that technology to see where the children are, giving them some assessments, and helping guide your instruction with that. So I want you to be aware that that's coming. We don't know all of the details, but we will be reaching out to you, and whether it's a survey or research, we want to get those materials out to you. First, we have to figure out if we give you a grant and you buy the technology, or if you tell us what you need and you apply and we buy the technology and distribute it to you. There are a lot of details that we're still working on, but the funds have been allocated. So the resources will be coming your way. We're just waiting for the rule. Seems like I say a lot about that, and I appreciate your patience with us as we move forward on this project. But it's a good sign and a way to use technology to support the children and your instructors in the classroom. So hopefully this will be helpful for you all. So for those of you who have had lots of COVID closures, or any COVID closure is more than we want, I know that, and I know that you're all struggling through that piece. For the VPK program, last year at the end of the year, the state allocated funds to pay for those extra absences that were due to COVID-related absences or closures, either classroom closure or full center closure. We just got information from the state this week that for quarter 1, so that's July, August, September, and quarter 2, October, November, and December, that we will not be doing that 80-20 rule adjustment, meaning if we withheld absences and we would give you absences for the 80-20, what we're actually going to do is pull a report and pay you for those extra COVID-related absences. I do not know if quarters 3 and quarters 4 will do it the same way, but we did get guidance and a report. So our team has to go through that report, make sure that the absences that it's proposing to pay for are truly COVID-related absences, and you will be getting some additional revenue to cover for that. As I know I've spoken with many of you about these absences, and trying to keep your book straight is a challenge. You are not allowed to charge for VPK hours. You can have your own attendance policy, and you can dismiss a child if they miss too much. But in this particular case, we now know that we'll be able to pay you for the last 2 quarters for any additional COVID-related absences, and those dollars will be coming your way. So I know many of you have been concerned about that. If the way to let us know is that you should have filled out our COVID closure form. So if you had closures and absences related to COVID, it should have been in your absence. When you submitted your attendance to us, that attendance should have specified that that child was closed for COVID. And if you had to close the classroom, that should have been entered into EFS mod. So that's how the state allocated funds, based on previous entry into the system. Okay. And the 80-20 still applies to individual students that have to stay home due to COVID. No, we're not using 80-20 at all. If the student had to stay home, that should have been indicated in the absence when you do the drop-down menu in the absences. We should know that that's a COVID-related absence, and we should be able to pay for that. So they're not going to do 80-20 reconciliation. They're just going to pay for those absences. Okay, and if the absences are exposure, it's still COVID health and safety. The child doesn't have to test positive because of the absence. Okay, it's just COVID exposure, and we will pay for those. If you had to close a classroom or ask a child not to come back for a number of days due to COVID exposure, those are considered absences. Okay, so hopefully that will help your bookkeepers and those of you trying to balance your budget. We do not know about January yet. I do not know yet. It depends on the availability of funding and the rules that the state set forth. But we certainly are keeping track of your absences and letting the state know. So there are issues related to that. At this point, there is no way to change anything retroactively. We will take a look at the report, but we've had an established policy and procedure for how to document absences, and that's what the state is using, is in the EFS mod portal. Okay. There's a question about calendars having to be adjusted. You do not have to change your calendar. That is not a requirement. If you choose to, we will support you with that. But because of the challenges for families, when you change your calendar, the parents have to change their drop-off and pickup plans. They have to change days off and closure dates. At this particular point, we're not asking for that to happen. We're going to pay you for those closures anyway. Okay. If you choose to, as a program, if you're concerned that your children are not being prepared and you've missed a lot of closure dates and you're worried about instructional hours for those children, you certainly are able to change your calendar, and we can work with you on that process. Thanks, everybody. And I know there's a lot of really unique circumstances. So as we send this information out to you, if you have individual questions or anything, feel free to reach out. I'll throw my information in the chat box later on. Okay. All right. What's next? Transition to kindergarten. This is kind of a reminder, as I mentioned to you before. There's these new laws that are changing the emergent literacy course, the program assessment. That law also incorporated a requirement for the school district and the coalition to work together to transition 4-year-olds into kindergarten. And ironically, we are one of the coalitions throughout the state that has had a program for a while, but I am going to ask you all to put this on your calendar. We have cards that we pass out to all of you. We ask your teachers to document how the children are doing towards the end of the VPK program year, go over it with their parents, get their approval, fill out where that child is going to kindergarten, and give us the cards back. And those cards are then sent to the public school and distributed to the kindergarten teacher that will be receiving that child next year. We've even sent those cards. I've personally dropped them off at private kindergarten locations. So if your child's going to a private kindergarten site, we will still pass that information on about how that child is doing, meeting some basic kindergarten expectations, and are they prepared? It's a really great way to kind of transition from the learning and have that kindergarten teacher prepared for the children that you've been working with for a year or even more if you've had them since they were younger. So I would ask you to please, please encourage your VPK teachers to allocate some time to complete these cards. They're very basic cards. It's really basic information that kindergarten teachers would like to know. And then go over it with the families. Use this as an opportunity to help families understand if their child is struggling in a particular area of learning, particular domain, it shouldn't be a surprise to that parent. Your teachers should have been engaging with those parents throughout that VPK year, helping them understand where that child is. So this form should be easy to go over with the parents, have them sign, help them understand. There are letters that go with it so that the parent and the VPK teacher understand what this is to be used for. And this is now required in law. So this is our program. We're open to enhancements. There will probably be opportunities for us to discuss ways to do this better, maybe not on paper, maybe we could do it electronically. We are open to feedback on our transition to kindergarten, but this is something that we completed and developed with VPK teachers and kindergarten teachers, I would say probably 4 years ago, and now it's actually being required in law. It doesn't look like this necessarily, but it is a requirement that we work with the district to transition these children and make sure that their learning gains are transitioned over to their kindergarten teacher and that they can pick up where the VPK teachers left off. So I appreciate your participation, and please make sure that your VPK teachers are ready for this. And we will be asking you how many cards you need. We have blue for boys and pink for girls. It seems very strange, but that's actually what the district asked us for, because that's how they, other than having information on how the child is doing educationally and developmentally, all they knew about children was whether they were boys and girls. And so pink and blue is what we use for right now as a way to allow the district to balance out their classrooms, and any kindergarten teacher to balance out their classrooms. So it seems a little strange, but that's the purpose behind it. So we will be getting that out to you, and we really appreciate your participation. It is moving forward a requirement of the VPK program.
Jennifer, can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
So for all of those teachers that take the time and fill out those cards, and for the parents that give permission for the teachers to fill out those cards for us, for everyone that we get back, and it has to be signed. So if the teachers can make sure that those cards are signed, otherwise we can't accept them. We will also drop off books for those children.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, that's a nice little nugget too for those children, or for the parents that consent to filling out those, the form.
Yeah, we actually purchased some books that would be a nice end of VPK book that the child can take, read with their family over the summer, again, to extend their learning as they're waiting to get into kindergarten. All right. Move forward. Dcf Reminders. This is just from our partners at Dcf. You've probably all seen this. I would hope so, because it was to be implemented by January 9th. But in case anybody is not offering transportation right now and is considering it, transportation, those that provide transportation and early childhood programs must have child safety alarms now. The Dcf trainings, all of the trainings that new Dcf, new early childhood staff must take, now reference the child safety alarms that are required, in addition to the second sweep of your van or your car. The new vehicle alarm requirement is incorporated into that, all of the different trainings that Dcf offers that talks about health and safety and transportation. If you have questions about it, your licensing inspector at Dcf can really help you through this. It's just our goal to make sure that everybody is educated about this. We have the Dcf has created a safety alarm bill website. It has a list of manufacturers. So if you have not made that purchase yet, there's a list of eligible qualifying manufacturers on that list. And so they can help you with that process. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that and had those resources. I know Dcf has been emailing everybody and mailing them directly, but wanted to make sure that you were aware of this also. Okay. Right. Oh, I got a couple more questions. We'll get to those in a second. Department of Health webinar tomorrow. The Department of Health is going to have two webinars, one at 1:30, one at 6:30. The coalition is not hosting this time. They will be on, I think it's can't remember the platform, but it's a webinar tool that the health department uses. The epidemiologists have developed a way for you to do that illness log when we've had the COVID exposure and you have to write down all the kids' names, or if you had a gastro outbreak or something else that was going on, and you'd have to list all of the children and fax it to the health department. They now have an online tool for you to do that, so you don't have to print and write and fax. They've been working on this since COVID started. They're very excited to roll it out to all of you. So they will be holding those tomorrow at 1:30 and at 6:30 to be able to share that information with you. So we'll let you be aware of that, and make sure that you've registered. We sent a registration email again this morning to everybody. So let me check at questions. When will we receive the pink and blue cards? You know, we can work on that. As we've got them. So we have the cards. Questioning about getting the books before the end of the school year. Yeah, we're happy to do that. We play kind of a tag team with trying to collect the cards, distribute them, and get the books back out to you all. But yes, we're happy to work within your timelines, and we can send out some communication to you about what we need. I know Kalisa makes personal phone calls constantly trying to connect with everybody about this. And if you want us to talk to your VPK teacher, we can even do that to help them understand what this is about.
And Jennifer, I have a Google Doc that I have to tweak it a little bit, but I'm going to send it out to everyone. Have them fill out that they're interested in taking part in this program, because we only have so many cards. So I don't want to take them to a school and then they don't use them. So we're taking them to schools that are saying, yes, we want to participate in this program. So I'll get that out as soon as I can tweak my form.
We may have to order more forms though, because this is part of the law now, Kalisa. This VPK to K transition, we are required to do this, have a transition program. So things have changed a little bit, but we'll be letting everybody know. And yes, we will send out a recording of the session as well. I know it's a lot of information and I talk fast, so I appreciate your patience with me. Thanks, Erica. Kalisa's been great to work with on the Bright from the Start program. Thank you. It is called Bright from the Start. We actually have a name for the program. Any other questions that anybody has? I know, again, lots of information to you all. Oh, let me put in here my email and phone number. I will put in here as well for those of you that don't know how to reach me. I will add this as well. Okay, I am putting in my office number, my work cell phone number, and my email address. And we're getting additional phase 6 applications as we speak. Yay, wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for everything that you do and for your partnership with us. We really do appreciate it. Feel free to reach out if we can support you in any additional ways, and be on the lookout for additional communication.
And that Google Doc, Jennifer, I'm sorry about the other. The Google Doc is just so I know how many classrooms they have and how many children are in the classroom. So that makes it easier for me when I'm counting cards to take them out.
Perfect. Thanks, Kalisa. Any other questions or concerns? Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.